Hi everyone, in this week we will introduce the installation of UiPath Studio and the dashboard of UiPath and give you several examples using UiPath to automate the process. First, let's go to the official website of UiPath Studio. You can use this link here. Here you need to create an account and sign in. And you can see this is the UiPath Automation Cloud. And here it has several functions like Orchestrator, where you can manage your bots. And also here are some apps. But these are more advanced functions. In our lecture, we will only introduce the desktop application of UiPath. So let's go to the Home dashboard and download the UiPath Studio. Here we can choose either the community user or enterprise advanced user. Normally we will just use the free one, the community user. Now we have finished the UiPath setup, so we can launch the UiPath Studio. Okay, so we don't need to sign in. We can just select other section options, and here we can choose standalone options. So we don't need to sign into the cloud. And again, we don't have a license, so we can just use the free version, the community offline. And here we have two options, the UiPath Studio and Studio X. The UiPath Studio is more advanced, and UiPath Studio X is for business users, and this one involves less coding. But here I want to first show you the UiPath Studio because the programming is also very easy, but the function of the Studio is much better than Studio X. Here you can find the setting. Here we can set up the languages, the theme, and the location we store our projects and files. And here we have the license and profile where we can use to change the version we are using. So we can change from the community offline to the license. And also we can change from Studio to Studio X. And if you go to the Start panel, you can find here we can open a local project we created before, or we can start new projects. So if you choose process, we can start with a blank project to design a new automation process. Here, let's name this as Tutorial 1 and choose the location. To better manage your project, you can add some descriptions. And here you can see the language includes the VB and C. The VB stands for Virtual Basic Language, and VBA can be linked to RPA. For example, we use VBA in RPA, and we will use this if we do tasks like string manipulation. But normally, we don't use programming in our process automation. So don't worry about this. Okay, and here is the canvas. If you click Open Main Workflow, you will see this canvas. This is where we build the process. And on the left-hand side, if you click the tab of activities, you can find here are different types of activities that we can use. We can either drag and drop the activities or double-click them. So if we double-click Open Application, it will appear on the canvas here. And you can see the outer box is the sequence, and in it, we can add different applications or activities. Another way to add activities is to drag and drop this one here, or we can click the plus icon and search for certain activities here. For example, clothes. So this is how we add the activities to the canvas. And on the right-hand side, you can find the Properties tab. This is the properties of the selected activity. We can set parameters and variables here. So for example, if we select one application and go to the properties, so here you can see the different parameters that we can set. And another thing is on the left bottom, you can see there are variables, argument, imports. So here, if you go to variables, you can find the variables we defined. Now we haven't defined any variable, but you can see the name, the type, and scope of the variables. Scope means some variables are local. For example, it only applies to certain application, one application, but we can also change it to make it apply to the whole sequence. So that is the most basic characteristic of the UiPath Studio. And also on the toolbar, you can find the create file, create sequence, save, export, debug. Here is after we build the whole process, we can use this to run the process and debug our workflow. And also for this recording function, it has several different kinds of recording. The most widely used one is the basic. Normally, we just add activities one by one to build the sequence, but a more time-saving way to do this is to use the recording functionality of UiPath Studio. So for example, the basic recording is used when multiple actions are performed in a single window and generates a full selector for each activity. And also for the desktop recording, it is used when multiple actions are performed in many windows, and it is suitable for all types of desktop activity. So using these recording functions, we can build the process more quickly. And I will show you how to use the recording in our second automation task. Okay, so that is about how to download, install, and open a new UiPath Studio project. Okay, the first example is the word automation. Let's go to the UiPath Studio. Here I already opened one file I created before named tutorial 1. So here let's search for Word. And now you cannot find any activities related to Word. This is because we haven't installed the packages of Word. So let's go to the Manage Packages and select All Packages and search for Word. You can see here is the UiPath Word activities. We should download this one. Okay, and now if we search for Word, you can see here we have two groups of Word activities. One is a app integration. The other is the system file Word document. The two are different because the app integration group requires you to get the Word application installed, but the file group doesn't require the app to be installed now. And also the app integration has more functions of the Word application. You can see here we have add hyperlink to document, add picture, append text, insert table, paste chart, read text, replace picture, replace text, save document as PDF, set bookmark content, and Word application scope. The first step is to add the Word application scope so that our activities then should be included in this scope. And here we need to add the document's path. We want to open an exist Word document. Okay, so let me choose this one, the instructions to proposal and project. And so the content is like this. I uploaded this to Canvas, and this is the instructions to your project report and proposal. So here we can drag and drop or add activities. Okay, so let us try this one, replace text in document. So maybe, okay, so now I want to replace AI by the artificial intelligence. So here, let's search for AI. And remember to place the quotation marks around the text. Replace with okay. And also I want to save the document as PDF. Here we can replace existing Word file or not. And the file path, we can select the file path to save. So again, I will save it to the desktop. Okay. Now let's save this workflow and run the workflow. It's quite quick, right? Let's open it. Okay, since we replaced the existing one, so the original Word file, here the AI has been replaced by the artificial intelligence. However, here is an error because originally this is the details, but it's also replaced by the artificial intelligence. And here we also have another new file created. That is the PDF version of the original one. The AI, although here we use the upper class, however, when it's replacing the text, it doesn't specify the uppercase or lowercase. So another way to do this more precisely is to add some space here and also add space here so that the AI in a word will not be replaced. So this is one example about the word. And let's delete this sequence. I will give you another example. You go to the Google Chrome, search for the Bitcoin to USD, and get the value. So that is what our human will do. But if we want to get the value more frequently, for example, every day or even every hour, we don't want to do this repetitively, right? So we will need a robot to do this for us. And to do that, they can create a workflow. Here are two ways to do that. The first one is to drag and drop activities or add activities here, just as we did before. The other way is to use the recording. Here we have the basic recording, desktop recording, web recording. The web recording is designed for web apps. Desktop recording is for multi-apps. And basic recording is for one specific app. Since we are using the Google Chrome here, we will use the web recording. Here you can see the panel. We have recording. This is the start button, and this is the end button. So if we click this, we can save the workflow and exit the recording. We also have the open browser, close browser, click, select item, check, type, and send hotkey. We can also copy the text or script data. And the element, text, images, we can interact with these elements on the web page. Here, the first step is to open the browser, indicate the browser. And the next step is to type into the search bar. And then when we go to this page, we want to get this value. It's the same here, but here we have two boxes here, right? So this is more structured compared to this. For RPA, for UiPath Studio, it can capture the structured data more easily compared to such kind of data. Because, for example, if the string is longer or shorter, then it might be difficult for UiPath to identify this value here. But if we try to capture the value here, it's always here in the box. So it's much easier for the UiPath to identify this UI element. Okay, now let's start recording. The first step is to open the browser. Click this. And here we can type the URL we want to go to, google.com. And also, let's go to the page. And then we should select this box and type the text into this search box. So let's click type. And you can see here the UiPath can identify different kinds of UI elements. Let's select the search box and type the string Bitcoin to USD. You can select the empty field. So if here are already some strings, we can empty the field first and then type the value into the box. And locate your cursor here and hit the enter on your keyboard. After that, you can find we still need a hotkey, enter, so that we can go to the next page. So here we should select send hotkey and still indicate this search box. And here we can select enter. Click OK. So we go to the next page and we want to get the value here. So let's use copy text and select this box. Here is one warning. It asks, do you want to use an anchor Because the selected control doesn't have the reliable selector, meaning that simply selecting this box is not enough for the UiPath Studio to locate the value precisely. So we need to add some anchors. An anchor is, for example, like this or this. So it means this value is under the graph and on the left of the this area and on the right of this area. So they are all anchors. Okay, so now let's indicate the anchor. Maybe we can select this one. Okay. Okay, I guess that's all we need. So now let's click Save and Exit. And it automatically generates the workflow. It captures what we did before. The first step is open the Google Chrome and go to google.com. And then actually we should put this into the do because they are all conducted within the open google.com activity, right? So the second step is type into the search box Bitcoin to USD, and then we send a hotkey, and then we find the value and also added one anchor. Actually, I still want to do another thing to get the value in a message box. To do this, we need to store the value we got here into a variable so that we can use that variable here. To do that, let's select the Get Text activity and go to Properties. Here, the output should be a new variable to store the value. So we need to create a new variable here. We can do this by hitting the Ctrl+K and randomly give it a name, for example, code, and hit enter. So in this way, we created a variable, and you can also see the variable here. If you select other activity, the variable will disappear. This is because the scope of the code variable is limited in the do. So if we want to use it outside the do container, we need to change the scope of the variable to sequence or web. Here, we can use the code variable. And you can see the warning will disappear. Okay. Let's close this once and run this file. Now the bot is running and we get the message box. You can find it runs much faster than humans, right? That proves the RPA's efficiency. So based on our last example, we already automate the process to go to the Google, search for, and get the Bitcoin code. Now, if we want to create an Excel book and we want to get the code for different currencies, we can just put this workflow into a loop, right? So for each currency, we get the corresponding Bitcoin code for it. To do that, we need to use the Excel application scope and Excel activities. So let's drag and drop it before the workflow we created before. And within the Excel application scope, so first let's indicate the Excel book we created. And within the do container, we need to add some activities. So the first step is to read the book, right? So we need to read the data from this book and from sheet 1. The range should be from A1 to B5. So here we need to add an activity called read range because we want to get A1 to B5. Let's drag and drop it here. And in this box, we need to type A1 to B5. And select this activity and go to the properties. You can see the parameters, the range, the sheet name, and the output. We need to store the range into a new variable so that we can use that variable later. So here, to create a new variable, we can either hit Ctrl+K or right-click and select Create Variable. Maybe we can name it as table. Okay. And now you can find the table we created before here. So that's the first step. And after that, we need to create a loop. For each row in the first column, we want to get the value of the cell and use that value to replace this USD. So here we need to add the activity for each row. So within this one, we can see for each current row, this is just like a notation. We don't need to change this one. But here we need to use the variable we created in the read range activity. So here, type table. And it also shows this is the variable we created. So in this loop, for each row, we want to get the row item. So here we need to add the activity name to get row item. Here we have several properties. So first is the row and the column number and the value. So here the row should be this current row. And the column number, this is the index. So we want to get the first column. And the first column's index is 0, not 1. And here is the output value. So here we need to store the value into a new variable like currency to store that value. And also if we select this activity and go to the properties, we can see here the column index is 0. This is filled by us. And the row is a count row from here. And the output is stored in the newly created variable named currency. So in this step, we get the value in the first column for each row. And then we need to replace the USD here. We need to replace this string by the currency variable. procedure into the loop. Make sure you put it in the right place within the body and open it. So now we can do some string manipulation. So here we add the variable currency. Okay. And you can see here is no warning or error. So that means this should work. Okay. After that, originally we used the message box to report the value. But now, instead of using the message box, we want to store the value into the Excel. To do that, we need to use another activity named write cell. Here, let's add it here. And because in the loop for each row, we get the first column's value and we want to put it in the second column in the same row. So here the cell should be changed. Okay, here we need to do some string manipulation. So here it should be as I type, you can guess what this means. Okay, so here the first character should be B, and then it should be the string of the number. To do that, we need rows index to int so that we can add to that int. And then we can convert that to string because only strings can be concatenated. And here we should input the value that we want to write into the cell. Here it is the code. And here is an error because the variable code, the scope doesn't apply to this activity. Yeah, you can find the scope is only the VAP, not including the right cell. So we need to increase the scope to body or do, both okay. And now the error disappears. I guess this is good. Now let's run this file. You see that, right? It works quite good. And we get all the codes. So that's all the tutorials in this lecture.